Bridge of the nose is fine. Center of chin, if you keep it small, should be fine. Anywhere else is going to peel away and stuff. Some of you will find that you can just apply a thin layer of wax directly to the skin. Hold that for me. And it will stick on okay. You sort of want to get like a base layer going. A real thin base layer that just gives something for the rest of our wax to stick to. Sort of like when you're frosting a cake, they instruct you to put like a little base layer of icing so you don't get crumbs like all out to the outer layer. This is sort of the same idea. Now this is staying on Brian okay. And anywhere that doesn't want to stick, I'm just sort of letting this dictate and I'm pulling it off. Now if you can't get a really thin layer on here, that means you're going to need to start with a layer of spirit gum first. Not a big deal. Do a little like paint of spirit gum, a thin layer. Give it about 30 seconds to get tacky so it sort of dries halfway, and then layer this on. This is sticking on just fine. Not everyone will have to do that. You want to start with a small bit of wax and build up. I have a amount here the size of a baby pea, like very smaller than a pencil eraser. Very, very, very small. We don't want to get bigger than this to start or you're going to make a big, big, big mess. Something else that affects the wax is temperature. So when we get all the lights going on in here, it's going to be a mess. Takes a little practice to do. So now what I'm doing is I'm molding this wax into kind of a tiny bullet. And essentially I'm going to press it into the wax I've already layered and use my thumb and forefinger to smooth it into the skin. And when it starts getting too sticky, as it is, because it warms up with your fingers, I'm going to try switching to a brush, which may or may not help. So you want to kind of hold it down and then use the brush, kind of spread it out. You want it as smooth as you can, which takes a little practice. And you want the barrier between skin and the edge of the wax to be as thin as you can get it, which also takes a little practice. So essentially I'm taking this bullet shape and I'm kind of spreading it so that there is a long, thicker area in the center and it thins out toward the edges. If it starts to get really, what's the word? Like it starts to lose its smoothness and it gets really sort of tacky and rough looking, smoothing it with your finger will help a little. You don't want to overwork it. Which is what I've just done. All right, now notice I've put it above the eyebrow where it's not going to move too much, it's going to stick pretty well, and also it's an area that kind of comes forward anyway. So we're using the architecture of the face to essentially make a forward-looking area come forward even more. So he has a heavy brow, so I'm using his brow, an area that kind of pops out anyway. Now, pardon me, if I have sorry, I normally set up before I come in, and I didn't have time today. I have one. All right, I will I will bring a bunch of these next time, but take a couple safety pins, put them in your kit. Now what we are going to do is we are going to drag the safety pin through the raised area, very carefully not to poke your partner in the skin. We're going to drag the safety pin through the raised area to create an illusion of a cut. Now the fact that it's sort of obviously built up right now is going to be fun because we're going to dig in deep enough and kind of open it up to kind of look like a wound where the skin is kind of pulling away. You know, the flesh has sort of like been torn.
Like you need stitches?
Exactly. So we've created a space where we can do a fairly deep wound. We're going to go back in and paint it over. It's going to take care of the lack of smoothness. It's going to take care of how obviously it's built up. So don't jab your partner, but what you want to do is sort of take the pin and at an angle run it along the skin. That way if it touches him, it'll be a bit ticklish, but it won't be stabby. You don't want to take it all the way to the edges though where it's thin. Let that be the boundary. Just go into the center. Do a clean line to start. Do you feel anything? See? And then what we can do is we can kind of pick at the edges. This doesn't want me to pick at the edges. Get in really close so you can see how I have left it kind of shaggy around the edge of that cut. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take our little brush and we're going to paint into the center of it. First thing you want to do, black is not very realistic for skin tones because this makeup black is pretty matte and two-dimensional. But we want to take just a tiny little bit of it on the edge of our thinner brush and tap inside this wound just a little bit. It's going to create depth. It's going to help us see how deep that goes. Just tap it in there. Now I'm going to use the same brush because this stuff's going to get kind of mixed together anyway, though I took a little bit of the black off. And I'm going to use, I'm going to play around with the colors of this bruise wheel. How the colors look on you is going to be different for every person. So when it comes to bruises and cuts, play around. On some of you, this pure red is going to look amazing. On others of you, it's going to look pink and streaky. So it just depends on how it reacts to the skin. Now I'm going to go back into this hole and I'm going to tap it with some of this maroon. Just around the edge, it's okay to leave a little bit of that sort of shaggy pulled stuff unpainted. It's going to look like torn skin that of course doesn't have any circulation running around it. So between the layers of purple and maroon and red that we're sort of going to paint out these layers. What's really going to sell this crevice is I'm going to go back in later and I'm going to put in some droplets of the stage blood to sort of fill up the hole. Now around here you might want to use a brush on the wax itself so that your skin tone doesn't ruin it. But I'm just going to go in and create a lot of bruising around here. Now a bullet hole is going to be fairly clean. Little area of sort of stipply redness but mostly clean. If we're talking about a cut, it's going to be bruised all around. I'm tapping at it with the brush, both on the skin and on the wax. It's going to sort of hide the fact that there's this big area of wax. Now, if you want it to look really fresh, tap at it, letting a bit of the wax show in little uneven areas, using both the maroon and the red, and get it right up to that edge, just leaving a few tiny little spots. Fingerprints are great for bruises because they're randomly uneven and spotty in a way that's really nice. I'm going to take that all the way into his eyebrow. Never use just one color, even on a fresh bruise, because it will look fakey. Mix that up. Really? And I'm not over blending it. I'm leaving it splotchy. Little bit of the deep purple just lightly around there. All right. So I should sort of talk through the story first. So I punched him from this side. Now he's down. So stand up for me for a second. All right. So I had to punch him from this side. He's taller than me. I knocked him to the ground, and now he is, and I won't make you get down, but now the idea is that I'm taller than he is since he's down, and now I can punch him from up here. So what's happened is, if I punch him here, I'm going to catch him, let's say I'm wearing a ring on my right hand. I'm going to catch him with this ring, and as he moves that way, I'm going to slice into him. Now, if I punched him from above, where else am I going to make contact? His temple, yeah, and around the cheekbone. Try this. Take your little fist, you can see, and try approaching your socket from different directions. If I'm punching up, I'm hitting underneath the cheekbone first. If I'm punching sideways, I'm hitting the cheekbone at the top. If I'm being punched from above, I'm hitting the brow bone. At some point, it's going to be somewhere on that socket, right? If I get punched straight into the eye, feel where your knuckles touch. They barely touch your eyeball first. They first touch that socket. So all of that is going to be deeply bruised and abraded. That's what we're going to do. So I'm going to continue where this cut is, and I'm going to hit, playing around.
So bruise isn't very inexact science.
Nope. And if this is really fresh, it won't even start to swell yet. Now tomorrow when he wakes up, anyone ever had a black eye before?
Yeah.
It's a nasty. Tomorrow when he wakes up, what's it going to look like? Right, the whole thing's probably going to be really swollen and shut. If it's really, really fresh, there'll be some discoloration on the eye, but it won't even be closed yet. So let's imagine this for a second as if it just happened. Really, and I'm just tapping. I'm just putting my finger in and tapping around. We don't want to smudge or blend. It's going to look too painted. You want to use your fingerprint.
Is this with different colors too?
Yeah, I'm just playing around with this red and this maroon, which are nice on him. Just sort of layering them, not letting any one be stronger than the other. And I'm going to go back in just a tiny bit and gingerly add in some of this like darker purple.
Now the yellow in that packet, would that be more of an older bruise since they start to get like green?
Absolutely, yeah. So best thing you can do is look up some primary sources. Fresh black eyes, next day black eyes, 3 days later when they're really green and yellow. Now I'm going to use a little bit of the yellow because it does a nice job close of discoloring the skin. But again, I'm going to do kind of a messy job of it. I'm going to mix a little bit with the highlight. You can open just enough to be kind of like, ooh, gross and discolored.
You can walk around like that.
Promise me you won't take a picture of your face and text it to your mother and be like, Mom, I got in a fight. That's caused a problem in the
It was
past.
been yesterday.
Don't do that.
Why is it April Fool's Day?
I know.
Don't do it. Don't be tempted. It's mean. Your mother loves you.
Hey mom, I got the crap beat out of me.
Yeah, no.
I would be smiling at him and I would just,
Right.
I would smile and, hey mom.
Okay,
You should
close
see
please.
the other girl.
You know what?
Tyler,
I actually think I am gonna go to my next class like this.
Great.
Just cause it'll be funny.
Is it a theater class?
No, it's my history class. And my teacher's like really old and sweet.
Oh, so you're a terrible person. This brings out what terrible people we are.